You know what? I completely forgot that Fionna and Cake even came out. I mean, where was the marketing for this thing? Because I have seen nothing. Not one single YouTube ad for this thing. And that is a darn shame because I'm already in love with this show. Fionna and Cake obviously follows Fionna and Cake and Simon Petrikov after the events of Come Along With Me. They're on a multiverse-wide adventure trying to do something. They haven't exactly made it clear what that is yet, but we're along for the ride anyways. The first episode is called Fionna Campbell. It follows Fionna and Cake as a normal human and a normal house cat. They're living in a typical 21st century, busy city, and it's dull as hell. Look, I'm gonna drop the whole YouTuber personality here for a second because I need to tell you that this first scene it just hits you like a semi-truck, okay? It perfectly depicts being a fresh young adult living in a busy city. You're kind of just going through the motions, trying to make your rent payment on time, putting up with your less than fulfilling job, and just kind of starting to play around with the idea of existential dread. You know that cushy, friend-filled adult life we were all promised as kids? Fionna and Cake remembers, and it is all too eager to remind us that it doesn't exist, really. So normally, storylines about the monotony of human existence really bother me, because while they can be really impactful, they're just too real. They're too, I don't know, sad. Entertainment, a lot of the times, is an escape from reality. And when your entertainment becomes your reality, or I guess it's more accurate to say, your reality becomes your entertainment, it's not entertaining anymore. If this were any other show, I would not be able to watch it. But Fionna and Cake mitigates this issue by actually being well written, with a collection of really engaging side characters. I mean, it worked for Bee and Puppy Cat, and it does work here too. And did I mention this show is actually for young adults? Not kids. It is rated TV-14, the same rating as Rick and Morty. And there's some blood, violence, even language. It's all here and it's all to the show's benefit. It's not overdone to the point where they're just flexing. Like, instead of saying schmauzow, Fionna says, God damn it. It adds to the idea that Adventure Time is a world that seems to mature with its audience. And it makes it more realistic for the setting too. So the plot of the first episode is Fionna getting fired from her job. Also, Cake is sick, but she can't afford a vet now that she got fired. You'll find that this episode really doesn't have a beginning, middle, or end. It's mostly just getting you familiar with the world, the characters, and it does work. There's no real character arc in this first episode, it's just kind of the jump into the adventure. Along the way, Fionna bumps into different characters that represent the non-magical counterparts of Ooh. PB, Marceline, Hot Dog Princess, Gunter, and even the Lemon Grabs are here, which that was just an amazing visual gag. One last thing I wanted to touch on from this first episode, it was a nice little detail. I think one of these writers must have been a barista at some point, because when Bubblegum's real-world counterpart is shown making a coffee, he says every step out loud and every single step is correct, down to a T. I work at Starbucks, and it was jarring to see the actual correct process on screen. Pull the espresso shots, steam the milk, high and slow, then low and steady for the latte art. I mean, it's just perfect. Episode 2 is where the nostalgia really hits. Simply titled Simon Petrikov, the episode follows Simon after the events of Come Along With Me. He's living in the new futuristic human city, a massive floating city that hovers over Ooh, because if you remember in the very last episode of the main series, all the other humans came back and now they're living on Ooh with Finn. So in this city, Simon's day job is he's basically part of a museum. He represents a man living in the 20th century. People just treat him like crap, uninteresting, and it's really depressing. Oh yeah, if you think the existentialism was too much in the first episode, prepare to be crying after this one. So people are still asking him about Fionna and Cake, because apparently the fanfiction that Ice King wrote continues to have a major cultural impact. It's clear that he really wants to forget about Fionna and Cake and the whole Ice King persona, and he says some lines here that are reminiscent of an artist being really salty about their old work because people obsess over the things that they're not proud of, and it can be really hard for an artist to come to terms with that. And with Tom Kenny's delivery, it feels like there's some personal feelings there. I hope he's okay. Simon visits some classic Adventure Time backdrops like the Candy Kingdom and Dirt Beer Guy's bar. He meets up with an older Finn, and things start to get way too real way too fast. Simon tells us that at one point, he started to dress up like the Ice King again in secret, because even though his mind was warped, it was at least numbing the pain for him. It's a really twisted reality he lived in. but he lived in it for so long that it was kind of his comfort zone. Adventure Time got existential sometimes, but it was never this far. I think we've all been in a situation, especially nowadays, where even though we start doing some really weird personal stuff, it just becomes our comfort zone. And it's not healthy for us, but we really struggle to get out of it. And that's why it's so hard to make friends nowadays. You just can't get out of your own headspace. Finn tries to take him on an adventure to snap him out of it, but it doesn't work. No matter what Simon does, he's going to be the only 20th century man living in the 30th century. He just can't fit in anywhere. He tries to call Marceline, and that doesn't even work. Then we get the shocking reveal that Simon is still trying to bring back Betty. He's got this entire altar set up with a Golb statue, and he's nearly successful. This is terrifying if you think of the consequences. Last time we saw someone performing this specific ritual, it was Magic Woman using Maja as a magic battery, and Golb showed up and kicked everyone's ass. If Simon was successful here, he likely would have destroyed Ooh all over again. Yes, Golbetti might not be as hostile as typical Golb, but we don't know that for sure. Golb was a being of pure chaos after all. He was at least willing to chance the extinction of the human race in order to see Betty again. Crazy stuff. Oh yeah, and Choose Goose was the magic battery, and he possibly kind of died at the end of this episode. So after the ritual fails to bring her back, Cake suddenly jumps through his head in a beam of light, and the episode ends. Fade into Prismo's time room, where a new button appears on his remote and starts blinking. Fade to black, episode ends. That was crazy. Okay, so a few theories for what all this means. In the original series, Ice King claimed that all the stories for Fionna and Cake were beamed into his head at night, and that turned out to be true. So I think similarly, his head is acting like a beam that now functions as a sort of portal? A Lars's head type situation. The new button on Prismo's remote could signify that a new path in the multiverse just opened up. Bucco states that universes can be linked temporarily through natural occurrences, and I think that might be what we just saw. As for where all this is headed, I believe that the antagonist that will be chasing Fionna and Cake through the multiverse is none other than Prismo's boss. If you've been keeping up with the Adventure Time lore, this shouldn't come as a huge surprise to you. We heard about this figure in the episode Crossover, where Prismo casually mentions that his boss will have to step in if the Lich creates a portal to all realities. I think it's clear that when multiverse shenanigans start happening, Prismo, his boss, and that entire hierarchy is called to take action. I believe that Prismo's boss is the highest member on the food chain that we know to exist, in terms of just power. Controller of the multiverse, Kang the Conqueror, if you will. I think that's who we're up against here. I mean, Prismo being involved, who else could it be? Overall, these were two really good episodes that functioned as a great launch point for the series. I had my reservations because the first trailer didn't really impress me that much, but now I'm super hyped. Writing is solid, animation is awesome, and I'm glad that we have an actual emotional through line developing here. It's existentialism, feeling so isolated from others that it hurts. Puss in Boots did something similar, and if it's gonna be anything like that movie, it's gonna get emotional and it's gonna be really good. New episodes are dropping every Thursday. Depending on if they release 1 or 2 at a time, I might wait 2 weeks to release a new video, like I did with my What If reviews way back in the day. We'll see. Also, Finn saying "bust my balls" is the funniest shit ever.